Captain James Reed wiped the sweat from his brow as he guided his small scout ship through the field of debris. What was once a massive space station now floated in pieces around the forgotten moon of a gas giant. His scanner beeped steadily, searching for anything of value in this graveyard of alien technology. "Command, this is Scout 7. Still nothing but scrap metal out here," he said into his comm unit. "Keep looking, Captain," came Admiral Wilson's steady voice. "Intelligence says there might be something worth our time." Reed sighed. Earth needed any advantage it could get these days. 5 years since humans had stepped onto the galactic stage, and most alien species still treated them like children who had wandered into an adult conversation. The Galactic Council, a collection of the oldest and most advanced civilizations, barely acknowledged Earth's right to defend its own solar system, let alone expand beyond it. A sharp ping from his scanner caught his attention. Something was giving off faint energy readings from inside a large section of the station's core. Reed guided his ship closer, the thrusters puffing small bursts to maneuver through the tight spaces between floating debris. "I've got something," he reported. "Going EVA to check it out." Reed sealed his helmet and stepped into the airlock. The space outside was silent and still. He pushed off from his ship, the momentum carrying him toward the chunk of station that had triggered his scanner. His suit lights illuminated the alien metal as he approached. What he found wasn't just a piece of a station. It was a data center. Most of it had been destroyed, but one sealed compartment remained intact. The markings on it didn't match anything in his translation database. They were older than any language currently used in the galaxy. "This predates the council races," he muttered to himself. With careful movements, Reed attached a portable power unit to what looked like an access panel. To his surprise, ancient lights flickered to life. Symbols appeared on a cracked screen. His suit computer attempted to translate, but could only make out fragments. Vessel, dimensional, forbidden. Reed downloaded everything he could. Whatever civilization had built this station was long gone, but they had left something behind. Something important enough that someone had tried to destroy all evidence of it. 3 days later, Reed stood in Admiral Wilson's office on the lunar base. Earth's blue sphere hung in the viewport behind the Admiral's desk. Between them, a holographic projection showed schematics slowly rotating in the air. "So let me understand this correctly," Admiral Wilson said, her gray eyes fixed on the projection. "You think these are blueprints for a ship?" "Yes, Mom. Not just any ship. Something unlike anything we've seen before." Reed pointed to various sections of the schematic. "These systems, they operate on principles we've only theorized about, and some we've never even considered. If this is real," Wilson said slowly, "why hasn't any council race built one?" "I don't know. But I do know that whatever civilization created these plans was powerful enough to worry the ancestors of today's council races. Powerful enough that someone went to great lengths to erase them from history." The Admiral's expression remained neutral, but Reed could see the interest in her eyes. Earth needed something, anything, to level the playing field. The Viridian Empire had been pressuring the Council to restrict human expansion for years. The Corvan hierarchy openly called humans a temporary anomaly in galactic politics. "Building this would require resources we can barely spare," Wilson noted. "We can't afford not to," Reed argued. "The Council restricts what technology they share with us. We're decades, maybe centuries behind them. This could change everything." Wilson stood up and walked to the viewport, hands clasped behind her back. Who could lead this project? It would need to be someone brilliant, discreet, and slightly crazy. Reed smiled. "I know exactly the person." Donna Morgan was elbow-deep in engine components when Reed found her. Her workshop on Mars was cluttered with parts from a dozen different alien technologies, all in various states of disassembly. "Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying," she said without looking up. "I've got 6 impossible projects already. I brought you a 7th. Reed placed a secure data pad on her workbench. "Something that makes the others look simple." Morgan wiped her hands and picked up the pad. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the schematics. She occasionally paused to zoom in on specific components, muttering technical jargon under her breath. "This is... Where did you get this?" she finally asked. "Found it in an abandoned station. Pre-council era." Morgan let out a low whistle. "No wonder. There are components here that violate at least 3 laws of physics as we understand them." She pointed to a specific section. "This looks like some kind of dimensional phasing system. And this," she indicated another area, "could be a consciousness-integrated navigation array." "Can you build it?" Reed asked. Morgan laughed. "Build it? With what? Half these materials don't exist in our periodic table. Admiral Wilson is prepared to allocate whatever resources we need. This project would have top priority." Morgan's expression turned serious. "You're really doing this, aren't you? Earth needs a game changer. This could be it." "You realize the Council would have a fit if they knew we were even looking at technology like this. There are treaties. Treaties that keep us dependent on them," Reed cut in. "Treaties that ensure we remain second-class citizens in our own galaxy." Morgan stared at the schematics for a long moment. "I'd need a team. The best minds we have, people who can think beyond conventional science. You'll have them. And a facility. Somewhere off the grid. Already being arranged. An asteroid in the outer belt. No one will be watching." Morgan's fingers traced the outline of the ship on the screen. "It's beautiful, in a terrifying sort of way. I've never seen anything like it. That's the point." 1 month later, Reed stood beside Morgan in the newly constructed facility inside asteroid #2457. Through the observation window, they watched as construction drones began assembling the skeletal framework of what would become the most advanced ship ever built by human hands. "We've named it Project Prometheus," Reed said. "Stealing fire from the gods." Morgan nodded. "Fitting." A technician approached them with urgency in his steps. "Captain, Admiral Wilson is on the secure line. There's a council inspector requesting access to our resource manifests. Someone named Krell." Reed frowned. "They're already suspicious." "We've been requisitioning some unusual materials," Morgan pointed out. "Hard to hide everything." "How long until we have something to show for all this effort?" Reed asked. Morgan looked through the window at the growing framework. 6 months for a basic prototype. A year before it's combat ready. The Council won't give us that long if they figure out what we're doing. Then we better work faster," Morgan said, her eyes gleaming with the challenge. "Because once this ship is operational, nothing in the galaxy will be able to stop it." Reed nodded, his gaze fixed on the embryonic vessel. In that moment, he knew they had passed the point of no return. Whatever happened next would change the course of human history, and perhaps galactic history as well. The race against time had begun. 6 months into Project Prometheus, Dana Morgan hadn't slept properly in weeks. She stood in the central construction bay of the asteroid facility, surrounded by holographic diagrams and half-built components. The ship was taking shape, but every solution seemed to create 2 new problems. "The power core is rejecting the containment field again," she said, rubbing her tired eyes. "We've tried every known material." Her assistant, Tom Rivera, nodded glumly. "Maybe we need to accept that some of these technologies just aren't meant to work together." "No," Morgan said firmly. "We're missing something. The ancient builders found a way. And so will we." The skeletal frame of Prometheus hung suspended in the center of the bay. Unlike conventional ships with their symmetrical designs, this vessel had an organic quality to it. Parts of its hull curved in ways that shouldn't have been structurally sound yet somehow were. Even incomplete, it looked alien, because it was. Not alien in the sense of the known council races, but alien to the entire modern galaxy. Morgan walked the length of the ship, her hand occasionally brushing against its surface. "What were you meant to do?" she whispered. "What secrets were you hiding?" The throat cleared behind her. Captain Reed had entered the bay, accompanied by a tall, lean man with sharp eyes and a confident stance. "Morgan, "This is Alex Hayes," Reed said. "Our pilot." Morgan raised an eyebrow. "Pilot? We're months away from meeting one." "Hayes isn't just any pilot," Reed explained. "He has the highest neural adaptation scores in the Earth Defense Force. If anyone can interface with the ship's consciousness systems, it's him." Hayes stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the ship. "Is it true? Does it really have a neural interface beyond anything in the Council's tech?" Morgan nodded slowly. "According to the schematics, yes. The ship doesn't just accept commands. It merges with the pilot's consciousness. At least that's the theory." "When can I try it?" Hayes asked, unable to hide his eagerness. "The primary neural node is one of the few systems we've managed to complete," Morgan admitted. "But it's not safe, Toe." "I'll do it," Hayes interrupted. "That's why I'm here. Right? To take risks." Reed and Morgan exchanged glances. They needed to know if the interface worked, but testing it was dangerous. The ancient text had warnings about the merging of minds that even their best linguists couldn't fully translate. "1 hour, Morgan finally said. "Controlled connection only." Later that day, Hayes sat in a makeshift pilot's chair surrounded by monitoring equipment. Thin neural filaments connected his temples to a glowing blue sphere, the ship's primary consciousness node. "Remember, just a surface connection," Morgan instructed. "Don't try to go deep on the first attempt." Hayes nodded, his expression intense with concentration. Beginning neural sync in 3, 2, 1. Rivera initiated the connection. Hayes's body went rigid. His eyes widened, then glazed over as if seeing something beyond the room. The monitors showed his brain activity spiking in patterns Morgan had never seen before. "Hayes, can you hear me?" Reed asked. For several seconds, there was no response. Then, slowly, Hayes turned his head. When he spoke, his voice was filled with wonder. "It's alive. Not conscious like we are, but aware. It remembers things, fragments of its creators, stars that died billions of years ago. It's been waiting." "Waiting for what?" Morgan asked. Hayes's eyes focused on her, but it felt like something else was looking through them. For someone to finish building it. Admiral Wilson arrived 2 weeks later for the first major system test. The ship now had its complete outer hull, a dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The effect made Prometheus look like a ship-shaped hole in reality. "Impressive," Wilson said, though her expression remained guarded. "Does it actually work?" "We're about to find out," Reed replied. "We've completed 3 of the major systems: the dimensional phase drive, the gravity manipulator, and the neural interface. They stood in the newly constructed control center, separated from the ship by thick observation windows. Hayes was already inside Prometheus, connected to its systems. "Beginning phase drive test," Morgan announced. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the ship began to shimmer. The outline of its hull became fuzzy, indistinct. And then, impossibly, part of the ship passed through the solid metal support beam beside it. Several technicians gasped. Wilson's eyes widened. "Is it teleporting?" she asked. "No," Morgan explained, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "It's phasing, existing in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. It can pass through solid matter." The ship solidified again, now positioned several meters from where it had started. "That's..." Wilson struggled to find words. "That's beyond anything the Council races possess." "And that's just the beginning," Reed said. "Hayes, proceed with gravity test." Inside the ship, Hayes felt rather than commanded the next system to activate. The neural connection made the ship feel like an extension of his own body. He thought about pulling, and the ship responded. In the bay, tools and loose equipment suddenly lifted off surfaces, floating upward. The technicians grabbed onto fixed stations to steady themselves as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Outside the asteroid, sensors detected a brief but significant gravitational anomaly, as if a small moon had suddenly appeared and disappeared. "Full success," Morgan reported. checking the readings. The ship can manipulate gravity fields at will. It could crush enemy vessels without firing a shot. Wilson's face showed a mixture of awe and concern. This technology, it violates at least 5 major council treaties. Treaties designed to keep races like ours dependent and controlled, Reed countered. The Admiral didn't disagree. How soon before it's fully operational? 3 more weeks, Morgan promised. Maybe less now that Hayes has accelerated our understanding of the systems. None of them noticed the small maintenance drone hovering in the corner of the bay. Its routine cleaning programs had been overridden, its sensors now transmitting everything they recorded to a receiver hidden in the asteroid's outer layer. Light years away, in the private chambers of the Viridian Emperor, a spy named Trell reviewed the footage with growing alarm. "Impossible," he muttered. "The humans have found precursor technology." His superior, Commander Vox, studied the images of the strange ship. "Are you certain? The precursors are just myths." "Not myths," Trell insisted. "Just erased from history. The Council founders destroyed all records of them, but apparently not all of their technology." Vox's 4 eyes narrowed. "This cannot be allowed. If the humans master this technology, they could break the Council's power." "Prepare a report for the High Council immediately," Vox ordered. "Emphasize the treaty violations. They'll have no choice but to act." Trell hesitated. "The report will reveal that we've been spying inside human territory. A minor diplomatic incident is nothing compared to what will happen if that ship becomes operational," Vox said. "The balance of power in the galaxy has remained stable for 10,000 years. We cannot allow these newcomers to upset it with technology they cannot possibly understand." As the spy hurried to obey, Vox turned back to the images of Prometheus. For the first time in his long career, the commander felt something close to fear. Back in the asteroid base, oblivious to the danger brewing, Morgan made a breakthrough with the ship's defensive systems. Hayes continued to deepen his connection with Prometheus, discovering capabilities not even hinted at in the original schematics. And Reed began planning the ship's first real flight, unaware that they were now racing against a countdown set in motion by forces determined to stop them at any cost. "They're coming." Admiral Wilson's holographic image flickered in the asteroid base's command center. Her face was grim. A Council enforcement fleet just passed Saturn's orbit. 6 heavy cruisers, multiple support vessels. Captain Reed felt his stomach tighten. How did they find out? Unknown, but they're citing multiple treaty violations. They've demanded we turn over all prohibited technology immediately. Morgan, who stood beside Reed, shook her head. "Prometheus isn't ready. We've only tested 70% of its systems, and some are still unstable." "Ready or not, you need to move now," Wilson insisted. "I've delayed them with diplomatic talk, but that won't last. You have maybe 12 hours before they reach your position." Reed exchanged glances with Morgan and Hayes. They all knew what this meant. "Where can we go?" Hayes asked. "They'll track us anywhere in the solar system. Then we go beyond it," Reed decided. "The ship can make it, right?" Morgan bit her lip. "Theoretically, yes. The phase drive should allow faster than light travel without conventional jump gates, but we've never tested it at full capacity." "We're testing it now," Reed said firmly. "Begin launch preparations." As Wilson's hologram disappeared, Reed turned to his crew. "I won't order anyone to come. This mission just became much more dangerous." Morgan laughed without humor. "We're all already guilty of violating council laws. I'd rather take my chances with Prometheus than a council prison." Hayes nodded. "The ship wants to fly. I can feel it." Reed wasn't sure how to respond to that. Hayes's connection to Prometheus had grown stronger each day, sometimes blurring the line between pilot and vessel in ways that concerned the captain. But they needed that connection now more than ever. "Prepare for launch in 6 hours," Reed ordered. "Take only what's essential." The ship hummed with energy as the final preparations were made. Its dark hull now featured subtle patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Inside, the bridge looked unlike any conventional spacecraft. Instead of rows of control stations, there was a central pilot's chamber where Hayes would connect directly to the ship's systems. The rest of the crew would work from adaptive interfaces that responded to thought as much as touch. Final system check, Morgan called out. Dimensional phase drive. Online. A technician confirmed. Gravity manipulation. Online and stable. Neural interface. Hayes, already seated in the pilot's chamber, answered himself. Connected and clear. Morgan took a deep breath. All primary systems functional. Captain, Prometheus is ready. Reed nodded, taking his position in what approximated a captain's chair. Begin undocking sequence. The asteroid base had been built around the ship, meaning their exit would be destructive. Special charges detonated in carefully planned sequences, breaking away the outer shell of the asteroid without damaging the ship inside. As the last barriers fell away, Prometheus floated free in space for the first time. Its dark hull absorbed the distant sunlight, making it look like a shadow against the stars. Council vessels have changed course, reported Rivera from the sensor station. They've detected our launch. ETA 9 hours. Too close, Reed muttered. Hayes, take us out of the solar system. Best speed. Hayes closed his eyes as he sank deeper into the neural connection. When he opened them again, they glowed with a faint blue light, the same color as the ship's core. I can feel the whole ship, he said, his voice filled with wonder. Every system, every circuit. It's like they're parts of my own body. Morgan looked concerned. Remember, Hayes, you control the ship, don't let it control you. Hayes didn't seem to hear her. Engaging conventional drives first, he said. Then we'll phase when we're clear. Prometheus moved with startling grace for its size. Without firing visible thrusters, it accelerated rapidly, leaving the asteroid field behind. Council ships are launching interceptors, Rivera warned. They're trying to cut us off before we can reach phase speed. Reed leaned forward. Can we outrun them? No need, Hayes said with strange confidence. Watch this. He made a gesture with his hand, and the ship responded. The stars outside the viewports seemed to bend as space itself warped around them. The pursuing ships suddenly appeared to slow down, though it was Prometheus that was altering local gravity fields to accelerate itself. Impossible, Morgan whispered, checking the readings. We're moving at 50 times the acceleration any human ship has ever achieved, but we're not feeling any G-forces. Reed felt both amazed and uneasy. The ship was exceeding even their most optimistic projections. How are you doing this, Ace? The pilot turned to him, that strange blue glow still in his eyes. I'm not sure I'm doing it. I think the ship is remembering how it's supposed to work. Before Reed could question that disturbing statement, Rivera called out, Captain, Council flagship is hailing us. They're demanding our immediate surrender. On the main screen, the stern face of a Viridian appeared. 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of extreme agitation in their species. Human vessel, this is Council Enforcer Krell. You are in violation of Treaty Articles 7 through 19 regarding prohibited technologies. Power down immediately and prepare to be boarded. Reed stood, facing the screen. This is Captain James Reed. We are operating within our sovereign rights. Your jurisdiction does not extend to human vessels. That ship you pilot is not classified as a legal vessel under Council law, Krell retorted. It is a Class 1 prohibited weapon. Final warning. Surrender or we will open fire. Reed looked at Hayes. How soon until we can phase? 2 minutes to safe distance from gravitational interference. Reed turned back to the screen. We decline your invitation, Enforcer Krell. Earth has been treated as a second-class civilization since we joined the galactic community. That ends today. He signaled Rivera to cut the transmission. They're powering weapons, Rivera reported. Evasive action, Reed ordered. Hayes didn't touch any controls, but the ship responded instantly. Prometheus twisted in ways that should have been impossible for a vessel its size, avoiding the first volley of energy weapons from the pursuing ships. 1 minute to phase capability, Hayes announced. The ship shuddered as a glancing hit struck its outer hull. Morgan checked the damage reports with surprise. Minimal impact. The hull. It's absorbing the energy somehow. 30 seconds. More weapons fire streaked toward them. This time, Hayes didn't try to evade all of it. Instead, parts of the ship's hull seemed to become transparent, allowing energy beams to pass harmlessly through. "He's phasing sections of the ship," Morgan exclaimed. "That shouldn't be possible with our current power levels." "Phase drive ready," Hayes announced, his voice now overlaid with harmonics that hadn't been there before. "Executing now." The stars outside stretched and blurred. The fabric of space around Prometheus rippled like water. There was a moment of disorientation for everyone aboard. Everyone except Hayes, who smiled with serene confidence. Then reality itself seemed to part before them, and Prometheus slipped into a space between spaces. The council ships vanished from their sensors. The familiar stars of Earth's sky were replaced by a swirling cosmos unlike anything human eyes had seen before. "Where are we?" Reed asked, his voice hushed. "Everywhere and nowhere," Hayes answered cryptically. "We're between dimensions, traveling through the spaces that connect all points in the universe." Morgan stared at her instruments, which were displaying readings that made no scientific sense. "This isn't like any FTL travel we know. We're not just moving fast through normal space. We're taking a shortcut through reality itself." Reed studied Hayes with growing concern. The pilot sat relaxed in his chamber, eyes still glowing that unnatural blue, a faint smile on his face. "Hayes," Reed said carefully, "are you all right?" Hayes turned to him. "I've never been better, Captain. For the first time, I understand what this ship truly is." He gestured around them. Prometheus wasn't built as a warship. It's a key to unlock the true nature of the universe. "And who gave you that insight?" Morgan asked, her scientific skepticism evident. "Those aren't your words, Hayes." The pilot's smile widened. "No, they're the words of the precursors, the ones who built this ship billions of years ago. Their memories, fragments of them still exist in the ship's consciousness, and now they exist in me too." Reed and Morgan exchanged alarmed glances. This was an unexpected and potentially dangerous development, but they were committed now, flying through unknown dimensions in a ship they barely understood, running from the combined forces of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. There was no going back. 3 days passed inside the strange dimension where Prometheus traveled. For the crew, it was both fascinating and unsettling. Through the viewports, they saw impossible colors and shapes that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Time itself felt different here, sometimes rushing forward, sometimes nearly stopping. Captain Reed sat in his quarters, reviewing the limited data they had collected. He looked up as Morgan entered without knocking, her face tight with worry. "We need to talk about Hayes," she said without preamble. Reed nodded. The pilot's behavior had grown increasingly strange. "What's your assessment?" "His brain patterns have changed," Morgan said, showing Reed a medical scan on her tablet. "These areas weren't active before. It's like new neural pathways are forming." "Is it hurting him?" "That's the strange part. Physically, he's healthier than ever. But mentally," she hesitated. "He's not just Hayes anymore. There's something else in there with him." Reed frowned. "The ship's eye." "Not just that. I've been studying the original schematics more carefully. The neural interface wasn't designed for human minds. It was made for the precursors. Their consciousness was different, distributed across multiple brains in a single body. And now Hayes is connecting to memories that weren't meant for human minds," Reed concluded. Their conversation was interrupted by Rivera's voice over the comm. "Captain, Hayes is requesting everyone on the bridge. He says he's found something important. When Reed and Morgan arrived on the bridge, they found Hayes standing beside the central holographic display. The pilot looked both exhausted and exhilarated, his eyes still carrying traces of that blue glow. "I know what happened to them," Hayes said without greeting. "The precursors. I know why they vanished." "Hayes, we need to disconnect you from the ship's systems," Morgan said gently. "Your mind is being affected." Hayes shook his head. "Not yet. You need to see this first." He waved his hand, and a holographic display filled with images, star charts, ancient structures, strange symbols. The precursors were researchers, explorers. They built ships like Prometheus to study the boundaries between dimensions. They discovered something, a layer of reality that connected all points in space and time. The display showed a visualization of overlapping dimensions, like sheets of fabric layered over each other. "They weren't warriors," Hayes continued. "They shared their knowledge freely with younger races. They taught them how to build phase technology, gravity manipulation, neural interfaces. For a time, there was a golden age." "What happened to them?" Reed asked, drawn into the story despite his concerns. "The younger races grew afraid. The precursors' technology gave everyone equal power. There was no way to dominate, no way to control others. So the strongest of these younger races formed an alliance." The display showed a familiar symbol, an early version of the Galactic Council's emblem. They attacked the precursors, stealing what they could of their technology while destroying the rest. They rewrote history, buried the evidence, and created the treaty system. Morgan stared at the display in shock. The Council's technology restrictions were never about safety, Hayes finished. They were about control. The founding races took what they could understand from the precursors and banned everything else, especially anything that might give younger civilizations equal power. Reed felt a cold anger building in his chest. Earth had been struggling under those restrictions for years, forced to buy outdated technology at exorbitant prices, denied access to innovations that could have helped humanity thrive. "Can you prove this?" he asked Hayes. "Better than that." Hayes touched a control, and a new image appeared, a vast database. Prometheus carries a complete record. Every treaty violation they accused us of, dimensional phasing, consciousness integration, gravity manipulation. These aren't dangerous technologies. They're just technologies the Council couldn't monopolize. Morgan moved closer to the display, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. "This changes everything we know about galactic history, and about our place in it," Reed added. "But it doesn't solve our immediate problem. The Council still wants this ship, and us, destroyed." Hayes smiled. "Actually, I think I can help with that too." While Prometheus remained hidden in the phase dimension, the Galactic Council was in an uproar. Emergency sessions were called. Military assets were mobilized. In the Grand Chamber of the Council's headquarters, the Viridian Emperor himself addressed the assembly. "We cannot overstate the danger," he declared to the representatives of 200 civilizations. "The humans have accessed precursor technology. If they master it, the stability of our entire galactic order is at risk." A Corvan delegate rose. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. If this technology is truly so powerful, might it not be better to negotiate with the humans rather than threaten them?" "Negotiate." The Emperor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, showing his anger. "That would validate their treaty violations. No, we must make an example of them. My flagship, the Dominion, has been dispatched to find this rogue vessel. When we do, we will demonstrate the consequences of defying Council law." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Wilson faced her own crisis. Council representatives had imposed immediate sanctions. Human ships were being turned away from jump gates. Trade was halted. The diplomatic channels that had taken years to establish were being shut down one by one. "They're trying to isolate us," Wilson told her staff. "Make us desperate enough to give up Reed and Prometheus." "And will we?" asked her aide. Wilson's expression hardened. "Earth doesn't abandon its own. Besides, I've seen what that ship can do. If anyone can find a way out of this mess, it's Reed and his crew. Back aboard Prometheus, Reed was discussing their options with Morgan when Hayes entered the bridge. Something had changed about the pilot. He moved with new purpose, his earlier confusion replaced by clarity. "We need to return to normal space," Hayes announced. "There's something I need to show you." Morgan looked concerned. "Is that safe? The Council will be looking for us." "The ship can hide us," Hayes assured them. "But this can't wait." Reed studied Hayes carefully. "What have you found?" "The true purpose of Prometheus, and a way to change everything." With Reed's reluctant approval, Hayes guided the ship back to normal space. They emerged near an uncharted star system far from Council territory. As soon as they returned to normal dimensions, the ship's sensors detected something massive approaching. "Council vessel," Rivera reported from his station. "It's the Dominion, the Viridian Emperor's flagship." "How did they find us so quickly?" Reed demanded. Hayes remained calm. "They didn't. I chose to bring us here because they were already coming. Trust me, Captain." Before Reed could respond, the massive Council vessel appeared on their view screen. It dwarfed Prometheus, bristling with weapons and surrounded by smaller attack ships. "They're hailing us," Rivera said. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to the Viridian Emperor himself. His expression showed satisfaction at having cornered his prey. "Captain Reed," he said, his voice dripping with false courtesy, "you've led us on quite a chase. But it's over now. Surrender the precursor vessel, and your crew will be treated fairly." Reed stepped forward. "Before I answer, Your Excellency, I'd like to ask you a question. Why does the Council really ban phase technology?" The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "The treaties are clear. Such technologies are dangerous and destabilizing." "Dangerous to whom?" Reed pressed. "To the people who might use them, or to the power of the founding races who wrote those treaties." "Careful, human," the Emperor warned. "You are in no position to question Council law." Hayes moved to Reed's side. "Actually, we are." He nodded to Rivera, who activated a sequence Hayes had prepared. Suddenly, every screen on the bridge filled with data, ancient records showing the truth about the Council's founding, the attack on the precursors, the deliberate suppression of their technology. "We're broadcasting this on all frequencies," Hayes told the Emperor. "Not just to you, but to every ship in your fleet, every civilization in range. The truth about how the Council was really formed." The Emperor's face contorted with rage. "Cut that transmission immediately," he shouted to someone off-screen. "Weapons, target that ship." Hayes turned to Reed with a small smile. "Now, Captain, I think it's time to show everyone what Prometheus can really do." As the Viridian Emperor's flagship Dominion prepared to fire, Captain Reed looked to Hayes. "Whatever you're planning, now would be the time," he said, his voice steady despite the danger. Hayes nodded and closed his eyes. His connection with Prometheus deepened until it was hard to tell where the human ended and the ship began. When his eyes opened again, they glowed with brilliant blue light. "Watch," he said simply. The Dominion fired first, a devastating barrage that should have vaporized Prometheus instantly. But the energy beams never reached their target. Instead, they bent around the smaller ship, as if reality itself was warping. "Full integration of all systems," Hayes announced, his voice resonating with strange harmonics. Activating the precursor defense grid, Prometheus began to change. Its dark hull rippled and shifted. Points of light appeared across its surface, forming patterns that pulsed in rhythm with Hayes's heartbeat. The ship was no longer hiding its true nature. "They're firing again," Rivera reported from his station. This time, the Dominion unleashed everything it had: energy weapons, gravity torpedoes, and exotic particles designed to disrupt phase technology. The space between the ships lit up with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Hayes made a simple gesture with his hand. Prometheus didn't dodge. It didn't have to. The weapon's fire struck an invisible barrier, and dissipated into harmless light. Impossible, Morgan whispered, staring at her readings. The energy is being completely absorbed and redirected. Reed watched in awe as Prometheus began to glow with accumulated power. What are you doing, Hayes? Showing them what they've been afraid of all along, the pilot replied. Not destruction, understanding. Prometheus released the gathered energy in a single pulse that washed over the Dominion and its escort vessels. But instead of destroying them, it did something far more remarkable. Every ship's computer system came alive with the same data Hayes had shown them. The true history of the precursors and the Council's betrayal. I've bypassed their information filters, Hayes explained. Every being on those ships is seeing the truth directly from precursor records. On the main screen, they could see the Emperor's face contorted with rage as his own crew began questioning him. Cut those feeds, he was shouting. This is treason. But it was too late. The information was spreading, not just through his flagship, but across the galaxy. Wherever there were communication networks, the truth was flooding in, unstoppable, undeniable. Reed stepped forward. Your Excellency, I suggest you stand down. This isn't about Earth anymore. This is about every species that's been held back by Council restrictions. The Emperor snarled something in his native language before switching back to the common galactic tongue. You have no idea what you've done, human. Without the Council's order, the galaxy will descend into chaos. Or it will find a better order, Reed countered. One based on sharing knowledge, not hoarding it. Suddenly, new ships began appearing on their sensors. Dozens, then hundreds of vessels from various species and worlds. They're responding to our broadcast, Rivera said in amazement. Ships from the Tauran Collective, the Meridian Alliance, even some Council member worlds. One by one, representatives from these ships began hailing Prometheus. Their messages varied in tone, but the essence was the same. They wanted to know more. They wanted the truth. Hayes smiled. This is what the precursors intended, Captain. Not a weapon to destroy the Council, but a key to unlock the knowledge they try to suppress. And what happens to you? Morgan asked quietly. Your mind is still merged with the ship. Hayes' expression grew thoughtful. I'm not sure I can separate completely anymore. The precursor memories, they're part of me now. But I'm still Hayes. Just more than I was before. Reed nodded slowly, accepting this new reality. And Prometheus, what is its true purpose? It's a seed, Hayes replied. A repository of precursor knowledge, designed to survive their extinction and help younger races when the time was right. He looked around at the bridge crew. They believed knowledge should be shared freely, that all sentient beings have the right to understand the universe they live in, a philosophy the Council rejected. Reed noted. Out of fear, Hayes agreed. But fear doesn't have to define our future. Over the next several weeks, the galaxy experienced changes more profound than any in recorded history. The Council's authority crumbled as the truth spread. Some founding races fought to maintain control, but most recognized that a new era had begun. Admiral Wilson led Earth's diplomatic efforts, working with representatives from hundreds of worlds to form a new galactic organization, one founded on principles of knowledge sharing and cooperation rather than restriction and control. Prometheus became the center of this new beginning. With Hayes as its interpreter, the ship revealed technologies that transformed energy production, medicine, communication, and travel. The phase drive alone made the existing jump gate network obsolete, allowing even small ships to traverse the galaxy independently. 6 months after their confrontation with the Viridian Emperor, Reed stood with Morgan on an observation deck, watching as ships from 50 different species arrived for the first meeting of the new galactic assembly. Did you ever imagine it would come to this when you found those old schematics? Morgan asked. Reed shook his head. I just wanted to level the playing field for Earth. I never expected to change the rules of the game entirely. The Council races are still unhappy, Morgan noted, especially the Viridians. They'll adapt, Reed said. They don't have much choice. Too many worlds have already embraced the new technologies. Hayes joined them, looking more at peace than he had in months. He still carried the memories of the precursors, but he had learned to balance them with his human identity. The precursors would be proud, he said, gazing out at the gathered ships. This was always their hope. That knowledge would bring worlds together instead of driving them apart. And what about Prometheus? Reed asked. What happens to the ship now? Hayes smiled. It was never meant to be unique. The precursors designed it to be replicated, so their knowledge could spread. Morgan's team has already identified the key principles. Soon, every world will be able to build their own versions. Morgan looked alarmed. Won't that create new dangers? What if someone uses this technology to build actual weapons? The precursors considered that, Hayes assured her. The neural interface requires a certain ethical compatibility. It rejects minds focused on domination or destruction. That's why the council races could never fully master it, even with what they stole. Reed nodded thoughtfully. So the technology itself has safeguards. The best kind, Hayes agreed. It rewards cooperation and understanding. The more openly it's shared, the better it works. As they talked, a message came through on Reed's communicator. It was from Admiral Wilson. It's time, Reed told the others. The assembly is ready to begin. Together, they walked toward the main chamber where representatives from across the galaxy waited. Earth, once considered a primitive newcomer, now stood at the center of a peaceful revolution. The ship that had broken galactic laws had, in the end, helped create better ones. And as Hayes took his place beside Reed and Morgan, he felt the quiet satisfaction of the precursor memories within him. After billions of years, their vision for the galaxy was finally being realized, not through force, but through the simple, powerful act of sharing knowledge. The future had arrived, and it belonged to everyone.